Can you answer questions too about the final law with DES?
How you doing?
Good, sir.
You doing all right? Good.
Share my.
Are you all right?
Yeah.
You're
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Londonderry Town Council meeting. Today is March 4th, 2024, and it is 6 p.m. Please stand for Pledge of Allegiance. Flags are on both sides. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ladies and gentlemen, please remain standing for a moment of silence. Tonight's moment of silence is for all of our first responders here in town and for their continued safety and their expertise in helping others. Thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is a town council meeting. We're doing the Londonderry Water Town Hall at the beginning of it. We're going to have a series of brief presentations. There'll be questions for the speakers, the panelists afterwards. Please write down on the paper and pens at the table that we were handed to from Kirsten. What I would like to be able to clarify here tonight is that we're looking at this for the warrant article that we have for the water system on High Range Road along the consent decree area. Part of what we're going to explore here tonight is that Londonderry has to be able to have some infrastructure around water. Currently, we do not have a water system here in town, and what we're looking to do is bring this line down High Range Road. The cost of the line is approximately $20 million. What we're looking for from the warrant article is, and it has to pass at 60%, is approximately $3 million. And we have $2 million in ARPA funds that we're going to be using from the federal government. So when looking at this is that we're looking at making an investment of $3 million from the taxpayers for $20 million. So that's what we're going to get into tonight. We have a number of speakers here tonight who I'm going to introduce you to, who have a series of presentations that we're going to walk through, and we have a series of experts here as well this evening, so we can make sure we get all of our questions answered. So let me start with the introductions. From my left, Robert Scott, the Commissioner of New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services. State Representative Bill Boyd from Merrimack. He is the chair of the New Hampshire Drinking Water and Groundwater Trust Fund. Bill was on the council when all of this started with St. Cobain back over with Merrimack, and I know he has a great deal of knowledge in this area. The Speaker of the House of the state of New Hampshire, Sherman Packard from the town of Londonderry. The former President of the Senate, Chuck Morse. Town Council Vice Chair, Chad Franz. Londonderry Town Manager, Mike Malaguti. Amy Russo, the PFA Response Administrator for the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services. Brandon Kern, Administrator from the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services. Michael Unger, Water Engineer from DES. John Bovair from Pennachuck Water. Jeff Provost from Weston Sampson. Councilors Ron Dunn, Jim Butler, and Ted Combs, Assistant Town Manager Kelly Karen, and our Executive Assistant Cameron Mayer. So the speaking order I'll go through the speaking order just so you know who they'll be. There'll be 6 speakers. There'll be Commissioner Scott, Representative Boyd, Speaker Packard, Senator Morse, and then the DES technical presentation by Brandon, then followed up by a presentation by the Town Manager. So without further ado, Commissioner Scott, if you're ready to go.
I am. Can everybody hear me okay? Well, first of all, thank you for coming, everybody here, and thank you for inviting me. Obviously, I'm the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services Commissioner. Maybe a little bit of background. I suspect if you're here, everybody knows what PFAS is, so I won't go too much into that. But again, this is a man-made chemical. Historically, it's commonly used in household products, ranging from food wrappers to in containers for food, to cooking utensils, to raincoats and carpet treatment. Obviously, portions of the town have been impacted by Saint-Gobain from air emissions. So as with many things in the march of time, as science has changed, we found that these chemicals can be harmful. So that's kind of why the agency is here. Londonderry is particularly interested the department in that you have one of the highest densities in the state of contaminated private wells. And while that's obviously unfortunate and something we don't want to see, it also presents an opportunity, which I think that word you're going to hear a lot tonight. For the next couple of years, between federal funding, state resources, there's an unprecedented amount of funding available for water projects, wastewater too, but in this case for drinking water projects in the state. And that level of funding is very unlikely to be seen again. So that's the opportunity part. What we're talking about, obviously, and as the chair says, is leveraging funds to meet the town's larger means. So that's the opportunity. So you've been disadvantaged to some extent in that you have contaminated wells. There's an opportunity here to leverage the work that Saint-Gobain will be doing, leverage the state and federal funding with town funding to not only obviously get safe drinking water, but also to meet some of the larger needs from the town. So globally, you're not the only town that we've been talking to. Generally, we've been interested in expansion and regionalization of water systems throughout the state. There's been a lot of work on that. You'll hear from others. So while individual wells that have been contaminated can be treated for PFAS, we feel it's the better solution is to connect to water systems. So a problem is with what we call point of entry treatment systems is they must be maintained. And if you don't maintain the system, you could actually end up in a situation where the drinking water in your home is actually worse than when you started. The other issue we have, as I mentioned, the science. So we were talking about PFAS, which is measured in parts per trillion. 10 years ago, we couldn't even measure that low. So the march of the science has developed, allowing us to measure in very minute proportions. I believe certainly within the next 10 years, there'll be another pollutant we'll be talking about that's not PFAS that will need to be addressed in people's wells. If people are connected to a water system, there's a global solution. The water system will be responsible for fixing that rather than each individual homeowner trying to figure this out. So at the end of the day, that's really why we really think public water systems are our preferred solution. Obviously, this is all voluntary, but we think that's in the best interest of all the communities. Last year, we contracted a study for future water needs in the region. Again, we're looking at regionalization where possible, getting people connected where possible. By 2040, it was estimated that we would need an additional 82 million gallons per day in the larger region here, and this would be one part of that. And I say that because Londonderry, undoubtedly, as you look towards the future, is going to need additional drinking water in the future, and this is a way to start getting that system in place, get the backbone in so you can expand when it makes sense for the town. So again, this is a rare opportunity. I would really hate to see the town miss the opportunity to take advantage of it. I really want to thank you all for coming and your interest in safe drinking water, but I also want to praise the town government. They've done a lot of work with the agency. They spent a lot of time trying to educate. This is part of this. What we're hearing today is part of that effort. And I really want to thank you all. I wish all the towns in the state were that progressive and forward-thinking. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Commissioner. Representative Boyd.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Mr. Chairman, through you, I want to thank you for the invitation to you and to Manager Malaguti. It's good to be here in Londonderry. Good evening to you folks. My name is Bill Boyd, and I'm a state representative from Hillsborough County, District 12, representing the town of Merrimack. I also chair the New Hampshire Drinking Water and Groundwater Advisory Commission, which was created back in 2016 by the General Court of New Hampshire. It was legislated and enacted by the General Court and then signed into law by then Governor Maggie Hassan. The commission's sole purpose was determining how to manage and spend a trust fund of $276 million that was acquired through an MTBA contamination settlement with ExxonMobil Corporation. Since that time, the commission has allocated and awarded close to $168 million in grant and loan money to help create water access and infrastructure to bring clean, potable water to communities impacted either by water contamination or to protect and enhance existing water sources for future generations. The Commission's approach to these particular applications has been our philosophy has been a four-pronged approach, problem-solving approach. Are we addressing, the four prongs are, number one, are we addressing contamination concerns with the application from the community? Number two, are we catalytic in spurring community economic development? Three, does the project provide community interconnection opportunities to provide a more reliable, more sustainable water source for the community? And lastly, and as Senator Morse can attribute to, our mantra is, does the community have skin in the game to better leverage the funds that the trust fund may be providing to a community that is also looking to ante up into the process as well? So the commission has seen a variety of different communities that have come through over the last 7 years. Probably the three pieces that I would four pieces I should point out, the communities like Conway up in the North Country and Rochester, they've leveraged their own financial resources, some of the strategic master plan that they've done on water development, to utilize funding from the commission to help bring their projects to fruition. Conway's infrastructure improvements along routes 16202 is kind of very similar to the proposed project here in Londonderry being run north-south along High Range Road. In my community of Merrimack, as all of you are very well aware, we've been significantly impacted by Saint-Gobain's malfeasance, and the voters in my community, through our Village Water District deliberative session process, saw the value in the Commission's role in leveraging funds to finance PFAS remediation for our primary production wells. That's wells 2, 3, 7, 8, that services approximately 65% of our residential and business community in Merrimack. Consequently, with that vote, the voters affirmed $7.7 million in grant and loan monies to build a filtration system which eradicates PFAS daily while also providing a clean, potable water supply, not just for our current Merrimack generations, but for future generations as well. In all of these other cases, all three communities have met the criteria that have been established by the Commission. For you folks with Article 3, this is, and I don't mean to sound cliche or colloquial, but this is a once-in-a-lifetime generational opportunity that you have to tackle PFAS contamination and develop a vision for how Londonderry wants to plan its water supply, plan its infrastructure to meet today's community needs while also ensuring future sustainability to the community. Over the last couple of months, I've had the honor of working with Speaker Packard on learning more about Londonderry's issues. Senator Morse, Commissioner Scott, we've also been introduced to some of the challenges that Londonderry has had. And I know that this water line is a very important project for the town of Londonderry to attack contamination, and to echo Commissioner Scott, really appreciate the forward progressive thinking that the community has had regarding safe drinking water. What I can say to you is I'm just one vote on the advisory commission. We have an established subcommittee that's going to address the Londonderry's application as it relates to the High Range Road project. And so while I can't speak to what a potential outcome the commission might have, I can speak anecdotally that this is the type of projects that our commission looks favorably when looking at using the trust fund monies to leverage with other communities so that they can achieve the goal of not only protecting their existing water source, but making it sustainable for the future. So with that being said, I sincerely look forward to helping the town with this important project in the future. If it becomes necessary, after next Monday's vote, then an application will be made to the trust fund. And I sincerely thank you very much for the opportunity to talk a little bit about the commission and its role with water quality here in New Hampshire.
Thank you. Thank you, Bill. Mr. Speaker?
Thank you. I've been working with Senator Morse and Senator Boyd for a couple of years now on this, and I think we are in a good spot to be able to get somewhere in the vicinity of about $8 million. If the warrant article fails, we don't get $8 million, period. If we don't get the $8 million, that whole project could be put in jeopardy. And when Representative Boyd said this is a one-time shot, this isn't a threat. It's a fact. It's a reality. Because if we lose the warrant article, we lose the money. Now, somewhere down the road, could some magical money tree appear? Possibly, but probably. So if we're going to start working on fixing the water problem that we have in this town, then this is a pretty good first step. Granted, as has been said, it could be $200+ million to do this, but this is a pretty good chunk, first-time chunk out of that $200 million. And this will put a lot of people that have contaminated wells. I've been in this town for 50 years, and I live very close to the old Auburn dump. And when they did that, they went down Auburn Road, but they never went up Old Derry Road, where I live. And I'm about maybe 100 feet away from the house that got the water. And I'm still on a well myself. And I've been buying bottled water to drink now for probably about 40 years. So I know what it's like to not have good drinking water. This will solve the problem for a lot of people. I urge you to make sure that you go out and inform all your friends, your colleagues, your relatives in the town of Londonderry. Go vote and make sure you approve this article so we can start fixing the problems that we have in Londonderry. Thank you.
Senator Morse?
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting us here tonight, and I want to thank the town administrator for inviting us here back in, I believe it was October, where we brought the team in and we started talking about this project. When Bill Boyd mentioned that, and that's Representative Bill Boyd, we haven't brought him in the Senate yet, but in any case, when he mentioned the commission starting in 2016, the governor asked me to take over this commission, and basically, we had about $270 million and $800 million worth of problems in the state of New Hampshire. So when we devised the system of how we were going to go out and work with communities, we devised it on getting communities to participate at about a level of a third. You can see in this case that you presented to us a pretty good case of coming to the state and talking to us about us participating, which is why the project started taking on legs. But I want you to understand where the state's coming from. Because when Governor Sununu said, we're going to make sure we bring clean drinking water, we were bringing the water to the communities and asking the communities to work with us to take that system from there. And we didn't stop at that point. The commissioner already mentioned that we studied the whole southern tier to figure out how much water we had to bring here. We just recently worked with Manchester and putting together their system up there. We're also working to raise Lake Massabesic to gain another 1 million cubic feet of water to put into that system. We've certainly are working with Pennachuck on their system upgrades right now coming out of Hudson. It's our intent to provide the sources. We want to work with you, though. And we also want to work with you in the future. So as you talk about these numbers that seem earth-shaking, there's two major lawsuits right now that New Hampshire has against these companies that have provided us with PFOAs. Not just talking about St. Gilbane locally. We have national lawsuits that the legislature, in their wisdom, has put the money into paying off a bond that we already took, and to go into the water system money so that, like we did originally, we can go out and help you create even more systems. That's where we want to be. In your case, we plan on coming down High Range Road with the project, but we're also upgrading the pumping systems on the east side of your community so we could come in through Derry. And you're already coming in on some of the system in Manchester where you come down with the Coke plant and other agreements that have been made. These are all great things. They're a great opportunity to be discussing. We're only here to help. We're not voting locally. Trust me, I've been a selectman. I understand what town meeting's all about. I would never walk into another community and tell you what to do. All I'm telling you is, we're here. We certainly think you created a great project. If we have to take that to Bill's committee, we want to take it in a positive manner. That seems to be how you're willing to present it to us at the state level. And Bill's already said they're receptive to something positive coming across to them. They've already made those motions, by the way. They did that in December. They on their committee, they treated this as a special project and want you to work out your end of it and come back to them. So everything's in a great place right now for the state to work with Londonderry if Londonderry wants it. That's why we're here. And if you do want it, that bigger picture, which I'm sure your council is working on, and you start talking about numbers like 200 million, listen, there's a lot going on in society. If the federal government says PFOAs are going to drop to a number that is actually increasing the standards, I would hope the federal government sends a check along with that, because it only makes sense. And you're half the problem in the state of New Hampshire right now. You have 900 connections to worry about. I believe we had 1,800 problems when I last studied that. So I think there's opportunities between our lawsuits and what the federal government's doing for the future. Let's get started today. If you want our help, let us know, and that's by whatever you're doing locally.
Thank you, Senator. Brandon, you have a technical presentation for us?
Yes. Good evening. Thank you, Chairman and Town Council, for inviting us to speak tonight, and thank you to members of the public for attending. I'm Brandon Kernan. I'm the administrator of the Drinking Water and Groundwater Bureau at DES. Among other things, we regulate public water supply, but we also provide a lot of outreach to private wells, as well as some regulation of those as well. We're here tonight because we recognize that your town is at a crossroads. Townwide, there's PFAS contamination in drinking water. It's impacting private wells throughout the community. It's impacting small community water systems throughout the community. In one way or another, millions of dollars are going to be spent to address this PFAS, and there's really two paths you can go. You can pour millions of dollars into hundreds, if not thousands, of little treatment systems in everybody's home. These treatment systems would be designed just to treat PFAS, which does not address the other things that you should be worried about in private wells. And they're also kind of a headache or a cavity where they got to be sampled annually. They got to be maintained annually. People have to come into your house. You have to replace the media in them. They're not permanent. They're not going to last a lifetime. They'll have to be replaced over time. And so while these things will remove PFAS, they have a whole host of other challenges relative to water quality and just logistical and cost when you look over the long term. Or you can take a different path. Again, you're spending millions of dollars one way or the other. You could put that money towards sustainable infrastructure that provides a really reliable solution for existing residents now, and also for the future. It'll help with groundwater contamination, which is going to be here for decades to come, and it'll also have the benefit of providing the town options for other water supply options depending on how their land use planning works out. You'll have infrastructure in place ready to support future projects in the town. So it's really important right now, as this money is going to be spent and as the money is available, that there would be a vision that you really look at how do you want to look 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 50 years from now, and not have regrets about what you decide today relative to addressing this PFAS in the town's drinking water. There's a number of benefits to having a town-wide water system. First of all, you have full-time managers. Unlike these small community water systems or private wells, you have professionals that are there to make sure the water quantity is reliable and the water quality is reliable, and it is regulated by both the federal and state government. Also, there's an economy of scale there. As new contaminants come along or failures occur, unlike at a homeowner level where you might have to come up with thousands of dollars to improve your water quality, replace a well, or replace a well pump, you'll have an economy of scale because you'll be with other users that are contributing to the system. It will be more feasible to have water. Also, fire flows. Fire flows is really important. When you have a town-wide water system, having that public safety benefit is just intangible for safety purposes, but it also saves you money. Homeowner insurance goes down where you have fire flows. And it's just important to note that public water systems are reliable, and I'll get into some of the benefits of public water systems versus private wells in a little bit. First of all, I just kind of want to show a picture of what Londonderry looks like right now. First of all, throughout the town, you can see these triangles on the map. You have a lot of small community water systems. Usually these are little condominium associations that have their own well and have their own regulated water system, or it could be a small subdivision on a common well. Over time, Londonderry, until recently, has not really done water supply planning. They have the last couple of years, and that's why they're ready for this moment. But over time, the way development of water supply in the town occurred is they looked to see if the major system, Pennachuck Water Works, is nearby, and if so, water lines would be extended and connected. But it's kind of done piecemeal, not a comprehensive planning mode, where you size pipes for the future, you had the proper storage, and had a long view. Right now, there's 16 standalone community water systems in Londonderry, and you can see on the map here that the triangles you see are those small community water systems that exceed not the current New Hampshire standard, but the proposed draft EPA standard for PFOA. EPA has proposed a standard that's 1/3 of the state standard and is set to finalize it this year. And so you do have small community water systems that will need to invest or connect to a larger system. Right now, there's currently 6 of those systems that exceed a New Hampshire MCL, and we're working on connecting them to the nearby Pennachuck system. Overall, the system works right now, but it's just not ideal, and it's kind of at the breaking point. Without a comprehensive plan, you can't just keep attaching more things to the water system, which is why a project like this, that's looking holistically and into the future, is important for the town. Now I just want to go over considerations when you're thinking about, do I want to have my own private well, or do I want to be connected to the community water system? Sometimes I hear, well, I don't want a bill, and that's obviously if you're a customer of community water system, you will have a bill. But if you do have a private well, you do have a bill also. By default, you're paying electricity, and that's a few $100s a year. But beside that, if you have a private well and you're only paying minimal amount of money, the chance is that water's not safe to drink. Most water in New Hampshire has at least naturally occurring contaminants, and in Londonderry's case, it has PFOA. And so when you're on a public water system, you don't have to worry about those things. Those things are taken care of by the water system with the oversight of DES. I already mentioned, again, if you have a community water system, you have pressurized hydrants for firefighting, which is a safety benefit and also an insurance benefit, and obviously it doesn't exist with a private well. As far as reliability, both quantity is also reliable, just like quality is, that water systems are regulated by us and meet minimum standards, both for supply yield and also storage, so that if there's a peak use moment on a weekend or if there's a drought, there's plans in place to have redundant sources of water or interconnections to other water systems so that you have a reliable water supply. And except for the last year or so, we've had 5 years of drought where we've seen hundreds of private wells, if not thousands, go dry, many people needing financial assistance to mitigate it, having homes with no water for weeks because either drillers weren't available or they didn't have the funds to replace the well. Another thing that's important about having a private well is that there's responsibilities that you need to routinely sample and put in treatment. And there's no financial assistance for treatment for private wells except for PFAS. If you have arsenic or manganese or uranium or bacteria or nitrate, there is no financial assistance. And that can be a fair amount of money to install, maintain, and test if you do have a treatment system. And so when you really break it all down, the slide got cut off a bit on the bottom here. If you're on a private well, it can cost $350 to $2,400 a year to properly operate a private well, where a public water supply well or a bill for community water system in a town like Londonderry could be $800 to $1,500 a year. So it is cost effective to be connected to the community water system, and better for safety and better for reliability. Oh, I'm sorry, I got switched on my slides. It didn't get cut off. You can see at the bottom there, the range of cost, $800 to $1,500 for connection to community water system, and then for private well, $350 to $2,400. I apologize. Relative to private water quality in Londonderry, there's some things you need to note that in addition to PFOA, which you can see here right now, we have 900 wells in Londonderry above New Hampshire standard, and if EPA lowers that standard to 4 parts per trillion, it'll go to 1,700 wells that are above standard. So 69% of the town, for the wells that we have sampled so far, would exceed that PFOA standard EPA has proposed. Also, naturally occurring contaminants that come from the bedrock, arsenic, uranium, manganese, those are present in wells as well. And again, the carbon that you remove PFAS with does not take care of these metals. And so you have 33% of the wells in the town that exceed for arsenic. And arsenic is one of the most toxic chemicals, even though it's naturally occurring, that you can be exposed to in drinking water. So the existing condition in Londonderry is summarized in this map here. What you see is anything in green is below EPA's draft standard. Anything in red is above EPA's standard, or I mean in purple is an EPA standard, and anything above red is above New Hampshire standard. So you can see town-wide, wherever there are wells, and there's wells wherever you don't have water supply lines, you can see there are wells that exceed the proposed federal standard and the state current standard. So again, that's over 900 private wells exceeding our state standard. There's also 2 core systems, the Londonderry core system and Brook Park, both that are in Londonderry right now, and they get their water from Manchester Waterworks. So a vision for the town right now that would be supported by this warrant article would be to have a robust water system for the future, to have a trunk line installed down High Range Road, kind of establishing a backbone for a town-wide water system that could address contamination and other town needs now and into the future. And that could also support additional lines to the east and west that would connect private wells that are contaminated to clean drinking water. A robust vision would also have additional storage, and under the current plan, continue to get water from Manchester Waterworks, which has very good water quality. But in the future, as other improvements are being made as we speak, you would also have the option to get water from Pennachuck, again, having that redundancy if additional supply was needed. And they also have very good water supply. So near-term projects that can be worked on. First of all, upsizing and extending the trunk line on High Range Road, what we're here to talk about tonight, and also upsizing interconnections of current small community water systems to the Pennachuck East water system, which is occurring right now. That work's occurring as part of grants and loans that DES is working with on those water systems. Thank you.
Thank you, Brandon. So, ladies and gentlemen, so far we've heard from several speakers. We're going to talk a little bit more about the warrant article here. The thing to keep in mind is I do know that we started this discussion before COVID started, and we started with a number of about $200 million that we got from our town engineer. As you all can probably imagine, I'm sure that number has gone up. It certainly hasn't gone down. So when we're looking at future water systems for the town of Londonderry, as we discussed at the deliberative session, what we really want to focus on is what is it going to look like 10 to 20 years down the road? Can we put a water system in place and manage it, inside the infrastructure of the town of Londonderry? Can we do it like we do our sewer systems now, where it's paid for by the users, and, we're just really operating at a very thin margin? So we're going to talk a little bit about the warrant article, but things to keep in mind is that's the way we're looking at viewing things going forward, is to keep the costs under control. So with that, Mike?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So just a couple of points before I get into the details of the project. I want to thank the town council for their leadership. I know that every town councilor has been deeply involved on this project going back a number of years, so that's important. I noticed a significant turnout from the Utilities Committee here this evening. That's appreciated. The Utilities Committee has done a great job in this area in terms of studying the issue, and getting the word out, not only about this particular warrant article, but about water and utility issues in general. So my thanks to them. And I would just acknowledge the presence of John Trottier. He's the Director of Engineering. He's here this evening, has been involved in this deeply as well, so my thanks to you, John. I want to talk a little bit more about the project and how we got here as a historical matter. Very simply put, this is an opportunity, as has been said repeatedly, to get $25 million roughly of water infrastructure project for $2.95 million from the Londonderry taxpayer. $2.95 million through the PFAS remediation loan program. That's a program that has very favorable terms, probably terms that you couldn't get on the open market, 1% during construction, and then 3.5% from there on out. $2.95 million in Londonderry tax dollars. That's in addition to the $2 million in ARPA money that is already in hand. The ARPA money did not come from Londonderry's taxpayers. It was grant funding that was awarded from the federal government. It has been noted that the warrant article, like a lot of warrant articles that you see year to year, it's not the most straightforward thing in terms of its language or its structure. There are very specific ways that we have to draft these warrant articles, and unfortunately we have to show the full size of the project and raise and appropriate that, and that's what the taxpayers see. But it's very important to note that when you go to the polls, what you're not voting on is raising $23.75 million in Londonderry tax dollars. That is not what we are talking about. We are talking about raising $2.95 million, and in the first year, that comes out to $215,000 to cover that first year's debt service. So that's important to keep in mind. This is a supply project. It is an effort to get the supply into the heart of Londonderry. This also happens to be one of the most heavily contaminated, or if not the most contaminated area in Londonderry. It gets the supply to where we can start distributing it into the neighborhoods, those heavily contaminated neighborhoods. As we go, folks along High Range Road can hook up to this water main, and we expect that a not small number of people will have that option. We are leveraging work that Saint-Gobain has signaled it plans to do. Saint-Gobain is a party to the consent decree. The consent decree takes a portion of town, and you can see it on the infographic. It's that western third of Londonderry that's highlighted in blue, and it makes Saint-Gobain solely responsible for remediating wells with a PFAS exceedance in that area, provided there isn't another source of that contamination. But they don't have to do it by running a water line extension to each and every one of those residences. They can elect to do so based on a POET system or based on water line extensions. And that's really the premise of this project. We are trying to get Saint-Gobain to do more water line extensions, and by bringing the supply into this area, we're hoping to make it just a little bit easier for them to make that decision in favor of water line extensions. A couple of other things about this project. It is, as has been alluded to, the case that Saint-Gobain is planning, and this needs to be finalized, but has proposed to run water line extensions to a certain number, more than 300 residences within the consent decree area. In order to do that, they only need to size the the main, the pipe that we're talking about, at 8 inches, call it. What we're looking to do is to upsize that pipe to 16 inches for a couple of different reasons. One, we hope that in the future, Londonderry will continue to build out its water system, and it would be a shame to have to go back and dig up High Range Road to upsize that pipe in 5, 10, 15 years, whenever that is. Two, we're looking to run that line further down High Range Road than is necessary for Saint-Gobain to do what it's currently proposing to do under the consent decree. And so the $23 million that you'll see when you go to the polls, it anticipates that Saint-Gobain is going to do that work. It includes the value of that work, and then you can compare the total project to Londonderry's share. I want to take a minute and talk as a historical matter about how we got here, because I think it's important to put this project in proper perspective. It is not the case that we, in 2023, decided, wouldn't it be great if we ran a 16-inch water line all the way down High Range Road? This is a natural progression of work that began many years ago. After becoming aware that we had a PFAS problem in Londonderry, the town council took steps, and the community took steps to raise awareness, to get our hands around the scope of the problem. We did that by creating a PFAS task force that created a final report. The PFAS task force did things like identified the source of the contamination, talked about possible means to remediate it, including point-of-entry treatment systems. It had a vendor fair where it put people with contamination in touch with potential vendors and raised awareness around that area. The town council stood up a utilities committee that has done great work and continues to do great work in this area. We worked with DES on the rebate program, which has been, as far as I'm concerned, very successful in getting relief to folks who had been drinking this water unwittingly for a number of years. We participated in studies that Weston and Sampson did for DES, studying the supply problem, studying the distribution problem, and studying conceptually what a Cadillac version, if you will, of a Londonderry water system might look like. That's that eye-popping $200 million number that we've heard about. We tested out a water infrastructure project on a smaller scale, and that was the Lancaster Drive project. Lancaster Drive is an area of town behind the Apple Tree Mall, the Shaw's Plaza, where there was a heavy PFAS contamination problem, not attributable to Saint-Gobain, and the voters approved, and the town supervised a project to bring clean water to each and every one of those wells. And then in each of the last 2 years, there have been warrant articles that the town council has moved to the ballot, and the voters have supported. First, in 2022, to spend $100,000 on legal and consulting work to continue to study this and attack this problem. And then in 2023, a test vote, if you will, and that asked if there was support to upgrade the town's water infrastructure system. I want to take, and it's important to note that warrant article included a healthy warning, if you will, that nothing is for free. We're trying to gauge support if it exists in the community to take these next steps, but also warning people that it costs money. The 2022 question, which was raising money to continue this work that I talked about, that $100,000, it passed 2,406 to 1,415, or 1.7 to 1. And then the article from last year's ballot to determine support for water system upgrades passed 1,391 to 399, or 3.48 to 1. And so, Mr. Chairman, to bring my remarks to a close, I would just emphasize that we are not asking the taxpayers to say yes or no to a $200 million water system. That is not what we're asking. What we are proposing is to take the first step to bring the supply into town to the places it's needed most, and then to begin to attack this problem over the next generation as a community, making community decisions about where and when this water needs to go. I view this as a community-driven project. People have been expressing concerns for years about this, and the town has responded, together with its partners, with education, awareness, working with the state on the rebate program and on these projects. We've ramped up our efforts over time, asking the taxpayers for money, as I pointed out last year. And this is the next logical step to give people the up or down vote on this issue, which is what folks have been asking for. I would suggest that the town has presented a clean ballot, Mr. Chairman, on this. It's the single capital project that we are proposing. And I think that reflects what we heard from the community during the budget season, that this is probably the issue that needs to be decided first before other capital projects are decided upon. Now it's time to let the voters decide, and that's exactly how it should work.
Thank you. So I have several questions that people have written down. Some of them are very similar, so I'm going to try to group some of them together. If you think I'm not covering your question, please bring it to my attention. But I have a similar question here from Ms. Smith and Ms. Jurgens, is how much will St. Gobain be paying for the High Range Road water main? Do we know what that number looks like?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Again, I think we need to be upfront with people that St. Gobain has not signed on the dotted line yet. Somebody has to go first, and the hope is that with a successful vote, it will be ripe for that to occur. But Weston and Sampson has studied this for us. They put together the trust fund application that was alluded to earlier, and the value that they are assigning to St. Gobain's work is $13.1 million. I believe I have that correct. Obviously, these things could change, but that is what we expect St. Gobain would be paying to do its part of the project.
Okay. Thank you. How many properties are left for St. Gobain to remediate west of High Range Road? I heard that was somewhere north of 900. Is that about right? Do we know?
My understanding, Mr. Chairman, is that there are roughly 350 residences on the west side of High Range Road where a water line extension is being proposed, and just slightly more where a point-of-entry treatment system is being proposed. It is important to note, as has been alluded to earlier, that the EPA has given notice of its intention to create a lower standard. Right now, the standard in New Hampshire is 12. The federal government would like to bring that down to 4, and so this is something of a moving target. If that standard comes down to 4, the number of residences with a PFAS exceedance under the new standard will increase.
So from Ms. Smith, again, I have, what are the national lawsuits that New Hampshire is part of currently? Do we know that? Thank you.
Yep. We currently have 2 lawsuits at the state level. One, I believe, is with 3M. The other one's with all others. It's similar to what we had when Representative Boyd mentioned that we got the money from ExxonMobil. We had 2 different lawsuits at that time. That was the big one that we put into that committee, the $270 million. But right now, those are the 2 lawsuits at the state level.
Thank you. I have 2 similar questions, one from Mr. Sullivan. When can we expect to hear from when the consent decree will start to get town water? Do we have, has anyone gotten let's say this passes, how long do we think this project will take?
I guess I'll take that one.
Thank you, Commissioner, appreciate it.
So I apologize, I didn't hear the last part of the question, so if I get that.
When do we, what he's saying is he wants to know how long will it take for the project to start to get town water? So let's say it passes, how long do we think it will be before we get started? I added the completion part.
Yeah, okay, I got you. So right now, they've done, holistically, St. Gobain has done roughly 571 point-of-entry treatments, so those are the individual on the people who are not going to get water lines. The water line connections in in Londonderry, I don't really have off the top of my head, but that, again, some of that is, as the town manager mentioned, is still under discussion. I will say, to the extent the town is, you get a positive vote and we start lining things up, again, that will change the dynamics. So we certainly don't want anybody waiting on getting service with clean water, but I think that'll be very telling if the town's able to have a positive vote, leverage this funding, and so St. Cobain can see there'll be a trunk line coming down for the rest of it. It makes our negotiations with St. Cobain easier to say, look, just do a water line connection rather than the point of entry treatment. So it's not an answer, I know, but I think that the coming couple months will be really telling. And what I would hate to see, to be blunt, is people getting a point of entry treatment, which between St. Cobain and, to be blunt, with our rebate program, we can make that happen, and we will, but lose the opportunity to get a water line, though.
So is it safe to say that if we think positively and it passes within 3 years?
That's certainly our hope, yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. All right, so I have one question here. With the area of St. Cobain contamination growing since the signing of the consent decree, is there any opportunity to reopen the consent decree to include the expanded area?
I'm happy to take that one in the first instance, Mr. Chairman, and I can speak to that because we, as you know, studied that. We studied that with the assistance of legal counsel. We put some very tough questions to the state. We looked at the consent decree very carefully. We wanted to understand exactly what the history was there, and I think we do now. It's important to note that whereas the standard is 12 today, the standard until 2020 was 70. And so the consent decree was entered into in 2018. It's an enforceable agreement. It was entered in a court, and what you have to look at it through the lens of the legal process. These environmental cases can be litigated for decades and decades, and under a higher standard with much less testing than has occurred, the state entered into the consent decree, and that is what is governing this process today. We do not believe that the state will reopen the consent decree. I would note that the state, recognizing that Londonderry, has a continuing problem, really designed the rebate program for Londonderry, and so that is how I would answer that question, Mr. Chairman. It's unlikely to be reopened at this point in time.
Mr. Chair, if I could also add.
Thank you, Commissioner.
So a problem with trying to relitigate the consent decree is time, too. So I mentioned earlier in my opening remarks, we have a window where we have additional funds available. A lot of that's for the Infrastructure Act money and that type of thing. That is, within a few years, that will be gone. I feel pretty confident if we were to try to relitigate with St. Cobain, we will be at least a few years in court, in which case we'll have lost the opportunity for the town. Yes, it's maybe not impossible that St. Cobain would pay more. I don't know that. But we would also lose the opportunity to get these federal funds. So I don't think that's necessarily in the town's best interest to kick the can down the road for some years while litigation happens. And the other thing I'll mention, too, not to say these things are impossible, the further you get away from in this case, for the stacks at St. Cobain, the harder it is to prove, certainly in a court. So there are many confounding things in the area that add PFAS. I mentioned, again, in my opening remarks, that PFAS is kind of in all the products we use and in a lot of other things. But because of that, there's a closed landfill in the area that likely, typically would have a PFAS signature. Car washes, towns, as mentioned by the Senator Morse, we have litigation for firefighting foam. So towns often, given their use of or disposal of firefighting foam in the past, can be also contributors. So the further away you get from that epicenter of St. Cobain, it becomes problematic to kind of prove, which again would add a lot of time, I think, and uncertainty whether we'd succeed. So I don't know if that helps or not, but that's my other calculation for why I'm not recommending that course of action.
Senator?
Yeah, I just want to point out, I know the community's done a lot of work over the years, because obviously we've been going since 2016 and saying we're here if you need us. But one of the things that happened in October was we did go to push St. Gilbane to help upsize this pipe, which we thought was a better benefit to Londonderry than the Poets. We thought it was a long-term solution at the state level, so I think we've been there right with you to make sure that this fight happens and so do something that's really, I think, more benefit to the community. So I just want you to know that's why we're here. I think this St. Gilbane debate was improved when we talked about putting this pipe in.
Thank you. I have another question here from Mrs. Somis from Century Village. Why are HOAs allowed to remediate community wells in a less timely fashion if they are receiving state money?
Brandon, you want to take a crack at that?
So Century Village is one of those small community water systems that needed to address PFOA, and the state very much incentivized an option of extending community water systems to the small community water system versus install treatment. It might be quicker and easier to go throw in a treatment system, and it'll remove PFAS, but many of these small community water systems have other water quality challenges. They might meet standards, but they might have elevated nitrates or salt. And also, you want, wherever you can, to consolidate those small systems to connect to a more professionally staffed and a more robust system that has more technical capacity and financial capacity to operate that system, just not now and to address PFAS now, but to operate it for all the reasons you want a public water system, reliable quality and quantity for decades to come. So that's been our approach with those small systems.
Thank you. Kirsten, please stand. Ms. Somanese, please see Kirsten after the meeting is over, and we'll see what we can do about addressing your question. You're welcome.
Mr. Chairman, may I just respond?
Please,
briefly?
of course.
So when you have a public water system that exceeds the standard, the public water system, because they can serve anywhere from 25 people to tens of thousands of people, can't go and provide treatment, but what they're required to under state and federal law is to send routine notices to the customers of the water system, letting them know about the health value exceedance and encouraging them to drink alternative water until there's a fix in place. So there is a system to make sure people are notified, but you're correct. There is that gap, and there are some towns or other entities, or even maybe the trust fund, that could step up and address something like that. So thank you for that.
Appreciate you bringing that to our attention. And please see Kirsten after the meeting. I have a question here for Ms. Perez. Were individual homes in the area that were to be served by the pipe asked if they would connect? No, there has not been a survey done to the best of my knowledge, correct?
There has not been a survey done, Mr. Chairman.
My understanding is from the analysis that we've received from the engineering groups is that they approximate in these situations that about 50% would connect.
That's correct. And that's according to best engineering practices, is my understanding.
And also it's saying, we're looking at this from the standpoint of being able to remediate costs for people to connect to and be able to work something out so that they're not paying full board cost, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, and in that connection, Mr. Chairman, it's important to note that the rebate program is not confined to reimbursement for a POET system at this time. It will reimburse up to $10,000 to connect to a public water system, and I would expect that would be available to help defray the cost to folks to hook up should this pass and should the pipe be built.
Yeah, I would also think that as a community, we would work together with DES and with contractors to be able to come up with a way to help support people who wanted to connect to the systems. And as we've stated at other meetings, do keep in mind that, this still is the United States of America. And if you decide you don't want to hook up, we're not going to make you. From Ms. Champa, what about the people who have lived with PFAS for years? Are there plans for researching or reaching out to residents whose health may be affected by these chemicals? I don't hear about that. Cause and effect, is that being addressed? Do we know would that be HHS? Please proceed, Commissioner.
So Brandon looks like he has some help for me here, but so our analysis in setting the drinking water standard in New Hampshire is that, and again, data from EPA we'll see while that's being baked may change this, but it's the health impact is over a lifetime of exposure of drinking water and at the most at-risk populations. So having said that, I know HHS, Health and Human Services for the state, has some programs where they can do blood testing and that type of thing. But Brandon, you look like you wanted to weigh in on that.
Yes, and I just want to point out that you're not the only town in New Hampshire in this area that's been impacted this way. There's a health study that's a study by ASTDR that's occurring for the town of Merrimack, and there's follow-up evaluation of a feasibility study to assess the occurrence of cancer and other illnesses in that town. There's a legislative bill, I believe, that's looking at establishing a commission to look at health effects for communities exposed to PFOA in southern New Hampshire. And then throughout the country, CDC is doing studies on communities with much higher levels of PFAS than what's occurring in southern New Hampshire. So there's real efforts to connect the exposure to human health right now. Right now, we can measure blood levels of PFAS, but relating that to a health outcome, there's a lot of work going on in a lot of different places right now.
So, Brandon, I think the next question is somewhat related from Mr. Ferreira. Will there be a future need for purification at the source? If yes, is there the technology and funding to do so?
Well, PFAS is certainly treatable. If you're talking about the source being a private well, that's treatable. For public wells, it's treatable and more reliable because you're not just treating for PFAS, you're treating for the arsenic and manganese and anything else that you may be concerned about. There is a lot of funding right now. We've had about a 700% increase in federal funding on drinking water infrastructure, and that's prioritized for contaminants right now. That goes away in a few years, and we're going back to where we were at that point, most likely. And so right now there is an opportunity for treatment for community water systems to get financial assistance, more so than I've ever seen. And I don't know if Commissioner Scott wants to speak to this, but there's certainly been a lot of work on making sure emissions that are occurring today don't cause the problem of the past. So yes, pollution prevention is occurring with new emission standards for those air facilities. And the statute now requires that we regulate air emissions to protect groundwater quality. That wasn't explicit previously.
And I will say, the advantage of a public water system is that they are required to do regular testing, so it's not an unknown. They'll know if there's contaminants in your water, and they're required to treat for them. So the water that comes to your home out of, in this case, Pennachuck, we have a lot of systems in place to ensure that what you get at the end, when you turn on your tap is safe. That's another reason why, again, easy for us to say, we prefer you to be on a public water system, so you don't have to worry about that. A problem with your private wells, for those who have them, is there's no this is New Hampshire, and I agree, this is a live free or die state, but there's no requirement to test, there's no requirement to know if your water's safe when you're drinking it, and that's of concern for us, but again, buyer beware.
Next question I have is from Ms. Venn. Besides 3M, who are the other companies that the state is suing, and is New Hampshire included in the class action suits with 3M and DuPont?
So we are, through the Department of Justice, we have suits, you're correct, it's 3M, DuPont, we're also, Senator Morse mentioned the other larger suit we're part of is the manufacturer's AFFF, which is the firefighting foam, which has historically had PFAS components in it. So those are the two major suits that we have going on.
So, ladies and gentlemen, those are all the questions I have that are submitted. Is there anyone else that has a question that they would like the group here to address? So, sir, I just need to get your name and address.
So there's something in the works, but I understand it's not something that's immediate, it's not a consistent type of situation. I don't even know if, I don't believe Century Village to
So I'm not immediately familiar with that, with Century Village. I know we've had discussions about Century Village. What I was suggesting before is that, we take that offline for you and get you an answer. There's some information. Do you have the answer? Oh, well, we have the answer.
Hi, yes, so Century Village is in the process of doing bids for an interconnection to Pennachuck, and we're hoping that work will be done this summer. So I know there has been some concern from Century Village about what the interim between now and that interconnection being completed. And I know point of entry has been something that people have wanted to install, but unfortunately the rebate program, because you are a public water system, does not cover that. Yes, but you are right. There is progress being made. I think bids are this week, and so once that is done and the environmental review is done, the project can get moving forward this summer.
Thank you, Amy. Anyone else?
Mr. Chair, if I could.
Yes, sure, Commissioner.
Maybe my staff can remind me, I believe the Century Village project was through the Drinking Water Groundwater Trust Fund, correct?
It was initially through the PFAS Remediation Grant and Loan Fund, and actually I believe it's 100%.
Okay, so I stand corrected.
Yep.
Folks, anyone else on water? Any questions? If you have a question, come on up to the podium, just give us your name and address, and we'll try to answer the question. Okay, seeing none, then we're going to end this portion of the meeting. Right after the town manager just reviews a couple of more points, and we'll be taking a quick break after that.
So, Mr. Chairman, the gentleman mentioned the PFAS sampling map, which is a great resource. The commissioner did not pay me to give this plug, but it is just a great resource. I mean, you can see, right down to what your neighbor's well looks like if it's been tested, what your own well looks like. You could probably go down some rabbit holes playing around with this map. But the point of me saying this is that we have, in the last couple of weeks, stood up a Water in Londonderry tab on the website. This is something that we've been building out. We're going to continue to build out. We're going to put information on there about the consent decree and the various documents that have come down since. We're going to link to the sampling map. I think it's already linked on the website. We've got the infographic that has helped to break this down, this warrant article down and understand. And we've got Utilities Committee information on this website. So it's londonderrynh.org/water. You're going to be able to get to it from the front page of the website. It'll have its own tab right next to cable access and things like that. So we'd encourage you to. We get a lot of questions about PFAS. This is a great resource and sort of what we'll be using as a repository for information on PFAS and water in Londonderry going forward. So I just wanted to mention that.
Thank you. Yes? Yeah, of course.
Is this actually hooked to anything, or should I just talk loudly?
That mic is live.
Oh, right.
We can hear you.
Okay, just a quick question. Brendan answered a question having to do with Merrimack and ATSDR doing a health assessment in Merrimack. And I guess I was wondering whether or not ATSDR is going to do any kind of health assessment in Londonderry.
I'm not aware of them proposing to do any study in Londonderry or similar towns nearby. Merrimack was one of the first towns discovered, and so it got their attention initially. It was a good study area where they had a lot of blood data to go with it at the time from back in 2016, and a lot of good water quality data going years back. I think the way they would look at it, but we could certainly connect you with them, is that it would be analogous. Their findings there would be very analogous to other southern New Hampshire communities, the same contaminant, mostly from the same sources. And so I think the findings there could be relevant to many other communities.
Right. I guess I'm just wondering if we have asked ATSDR to do a health assessment of Londonderry. And I guess the other part, or even any cancer cluster assessments done, because that would be helpful for us to know as residents of Londonderry.
So relative to, and this is outside my area of expertise, but Health and Human Services would be the entity you could speak with about looking at cancer occurrence information. They have, it's confidential information, or not confidential, but it's controlled information because it's private health information, but they have access to it, and we could get you in touch with the right people there to talk about it.
Okay. I mean, the data can be put up just as it was on the maps of the wells that are contaminated, so it doesn't have to be obviously individual names or addresses.
Because it's private health information, there's a lot of control and sensitivity with how you access it and how it can be displayed. There's federal rules about that. So.
Right. I'm just thinking of Parkersburg, West Virginia, and what was done in Parkersburg, West Virginia, where essentially they paid the residents $400 per resident to do blood tests. And there are thousands and thousands of people in that area that were tested. I mean, I'm sure you know about this case, and I'm sure you know about Rob Bellotti, et cetera. And it took 7 years for the assessments to be done, but essentially it was that health assessment, which was the largest and most historical epidemiology study done on PFAS and PFOA, and essentially established the cause and effect for all of the cancers and variety of health effects that were occurring in that area. So I guess I'm just, I think it's useful for us to have health assessments, and it doesn't have to be just Londonderry. I mean, it should probably be Bedford, it should probably be Salem, it should probably be other towns. And the reason why I'm asking for it is just because if we do have information like that that can prove some of the health effects of our towns, it's going to be easier for us to get money from the feds.
So, again, I'm not the expert, but I'm somewhat familiar because the group is seeking a lot of data from our bureau as we regulate public water systems. So Dartmouth does have a contract to do a feasibility study, and it's not a study, it's scoping out the feasibility of looking at health outcomes from exposure to PFAS. The initial focus is Merrimack, but for meetings I've been on, they said because there's a bigger populace in southern New Hampshire that's been exposed, that they're going to look at what is the proper study area, and so we could get you contact information for that as well.
Great, and maybe you guys can encourage Dartmouth to expand the study.
again, it's just, they're trying to assess the feasibility of really doing the study.
Yeah.
You know, do we have the right data? How much would it cost? You know,
Yeah.
I don't want to jump into something and get stuck. you know.
Right, not be able to finish it, right. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, if I can jump in for a minute, John. There were some studies that I've been working on out in the seacoast, but you kind of said it. To do one of these studies and do it properly, it takes anywhere from 5 to 10 years to get a proper analysis of, whether it really is a problem or not.
So with that, seeing no further questions, I want to go through, thank you, Amy, Brandon, Michael, for attending, John and Jeff. Senator, Mr. Speaker, Commissioner, we all appreciate you spending time. I think Bill must have left. So appreciate you coming and spending time with us and sharing your knowledge. Thank you very much. Folks, we're going to take a break for about 5 minutes. So as usual, we open our meetings with public comment. Is there anyone who would like to address the council?
Richard Blinsky, 89 Hall Road. I want to bring something to the attention of the council. Want to bring something to the attention of the council about campaign signs. We have an incumbent town council who's running for re-election, who has been putting out signs that do not meet 664:14. You know, in the past, the council's talked about ads in the paper not labeled correctly, signs not labeled correctly, and we have a council who's running for re-election, has every right to do so, has every right to put signs out, but they don't meet the criteria of 664. You're required to sign the bottom of your signs with your name and your address. In lieu of that, you can put a web address, and when the web page opens, it needs to immediately and clearly have that information on it. That's not the case. So the state is aware of this. I've got no problem telling them. I called Dick Tracy at the state. These need to either be removed and/or corrected. They're the same ones that were used in 2001 when the candidate ran. So, Mr. Butler,
Yes, thanks, Richard. I
I'm letting you
appreciate it.
know.
I'll wait for the Attorney General's office to give me a call.
Well, they're not going to call you until after the election because they're too busy. They got
No
hundreds of
problem.
these
Anything else
complaints.
you want to talk about?
But all you have to do is read 664.
I know all about it.
Yeah,
If you
well-
think I was going to spend more money for another sign, my name's on it, people know they can get me, and heaven forbid, there are other people that have made some mistakes.
There is, and there has
So,
been, and
you
they've
know
been
something?
called out in the
I ask
past.
for forgiveness, Richard.
No, well, when you want to pick on everybody else, this is what happens.
Oh, pick on everybody
The
else.
the other thing I want to bring to the attention is we have I don't know if it's an ordinance, let me pull it up here. Policy regarding campaign signs on town property. For years, they've been allowed across from the school, and I guess we're going to continue that. But we have another incumbent who's currently running for re-election, who has campaign signs on the car, on the doors of the car that's parked at Town Hall. We don't allow campaign signs at the Town Hall complex. So either you have to allow everybody to put them at the Town Hall complex on their vehicles, or they need to go away. It is what it is. Fair and equitable for all. And that person would be the current town clerk, Sherry Farrell. So I wanted to bring this to the attention, because, you know, you guys just keep going after the newspaper or Deb Paul. And weeks ago, I asked for you people to apologize to the Gandias and the Pauls or resign. You haven't apologized to anybody. You were dead wrong, and you haven't resigned. You're not above everybody else. So follow what's in there, or don't run.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment?
I'm just going to add to that, Jim, because the same thing happened to me when I ran against
Name and
Sherry
address.
Farrell.
Name and address.
Oh, I'm sorry, Martha Smith, 38 Shasta Drive, I'm sorry. And when the Attorney General did call me, he said I could put a sticker on the sign that would just contain that information, and he said that would solve the problem, so just passing that on to you.
Thank you.
Anyone else for public comment? Seeing none?
Good evening. Just want to take a quick moment and update you on some positive news for your police department. As many of you know, the last couple years we've been down 2 dispatchers, and we've been having to fill that. As of last week, we are finally, thankfully, fully staffed within the organization in the dispatch center, which at times was up to 80 hours a week in overtime 80 hours a week of asking our other staff to fill in while we tried our best to find the right fit. So I think that's positive news for the police department and for the callers that call in, and thought you'd like to hear that. So thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Okay. Any further public comment?
Good evening, everyone. Sherry Farrell, your town clerk. We've been getting a lot of questions the last couple of weeks about our dog registrations, and we want everyone to know that the tags are in. They're a great little heart, and yes, you can come in now to register your dogs for the next year. So thank you, and don't forget, we have an election coming up on March 12th. Polls open at 6 a.m. and close at 8 p.m., and we're hoping that we'll have thousands of people come out to vote. So thank you so much, and thank you for all you do. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else for public comment? Seeing none, public comment is closed. So we're going to have a short presentation around housing from Councilor Butler.
If anyone has been paying attention to a lot of the state and local towns, housing has become problematic for the state of New Hampshire. We're aging in place, and we're struggling to have enough affordable housing in the state. Several years ago, the Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission had developed a report that indicated, at least in the county, or Rockingham County, cities and towns, and there was a chart that recommended what we needed, where our shortfall was. Since then, I think that Londonderry has done a really good job at providing the housing sources we need. My position is going to go in the other direction, and I'll explain why. Over the past several months, we've had several serious car accidents. For the last several years, and being in town as long as I have been noticing that above and beyond all the housing that we've been putting in, Wallace Farms and Vista Ridge and so on and so forth, that the call reports from the police and fire department is starting to increase. So it's starting to put tremendous pressure on our infrastructure. I have also taken the time, and quite a lot of time, to sit at intersections. I'm retired now, so I have some more time to do it. And I can tell you, over the past several years, the traffic situation in the town of Londonderry is becoming extreme. And why do I bring this up? As far as I'm concerned, I think we need to stop the housing. I think the condominiums, the apartment buildings, we need to stop it. Londonderry, can you pull up the map of the town? When it comes to traffic, okay. When it comes to traffic, if you could zoom in on it, the red lines are state roads. Londonderry has no control over the state roads. Any signal intersection, any intersection improvements, anything that happens within those roads is state, and we have no say on it. Now, if you take a look at this map, and I took a little time to do it, the green roads that you see is what I call our commuter roads. And there's different type of commuters. There's in-town commuters, which is us that are leaving town or staying in town, and then we have outside commuters that come through town. Do we have the opportunity maybe to control some of the traffic in town? Yes. But as far as outside the town and traffic moving through the town, the answer is no. We can't control the growth around us, and we're in between 93 and Route 3. So what I'm starting to see in the roads that are in green is a lot of the intersections, for instance, Litchfield and Mammoth Road. Constant complaints about accidents, about speed, about trucks going down there. We've had accidents there. You take a look at Stonehenge and Route 28. There's a house opposite the street of Stonehenge. Take a look at their front fence. Someone went through it again. Constant accidents there, constant complaints. You go and you take a look at the Pillsbury-Gilchrist intersection that passes from Derry, that passes Woodmont. Accidents, and I don't know if you've been there during rush hour traffic, it's really starting to back up. So I can tell you, that, well, it's my opinion that within the next 4 or 5 years, we're going to be stuck with a real traffic problem. And I can tell you that our police services have increased in areas. I can tell you that there are times when the police department may go to the same community 3 or 4 times in one day. Same thing with the fire department. I believe in development, I do, but I believe that it should be in the right place. And I think it's something that the town council really has to look at. Now, I have some charts that will show you the different developments in town. The one particular development or area that I would like to talk about is the Gilchrist Road. Gilchrist and 102. We've had accidents there. I've seen people dump motorcycles right at the intersection where Home Depot entrance is. That stretch alone, we're going to see 3 developments there. One development is about 40 homes, another one is 50, and the Mercedes, I think, is 90. Now, that road, if you've been in town long enough and you've driven it a lot, it's tough as it is now. And as this stuff starts to come online, it's going to get worse. And once we get to that point, we won't be able to change it. So I really think that it's time that we take a look at a growth management ordinance. And I would like the town council to instruct the planning board to start to look into a growth management ordinance. I can tell you that the Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission was in the planning board meeting recently, and the representatives have said that Londonderry has led the way again and has done very well with the mix that we have in this town. There is an RSA that people should take a look at, which is 674:59, and it requires municipalities to prove reasonable and realistic opportunities for the development of workforce housing. It emphasis on reasonable zoning requirements and providing a fair share. I firmly believe that Londonderry has got to that point and that we need to slow it down. If you take a look at what is in the pipeline now for projects, and the projects that have been presented, whether it's they're actually in the review stage or they've been in front of the planning board, I'm not looking to hurt those projects. They've been here, they've been working it, and I think it's only fair that you know, we stay with it. I just want to, here's what is either in the pipeline or it's been conceptual. Gilchrist Road, Massetti, which has been a good builder, he's been good, approximately 96 units. Gentrex Construction on Gilchrist Road, approximately 67 units. La Montagne Realty, Gilchrist Road, there's the Gilchrist Road. We're looking at 44 units. Londonderry Holdings, which has come up, they're looking for a PUD at 104 Grenier Field, 439 units approximately. Gemco Builders, Vista East and Vista West, they're looking at 130 units. Brook Hollow Corporation on South Road, they were looking for 17. Winnie Estates, 21. Moose Hill Estates, 13, VW Investment, which I think they've already broken ground, which is on Rockingham Road and 28th. There's 60, I believe 16 units there. Wyndham Realty Development, which we just, I believe that the planning board has finally rectified that. In the beginning, they were looking to put 96 low-income housing units on that property of that farm. That's on Hillside Ave. The owner of the property came in, and he either wanted to turn it into a storage facility, inside storage facility, or he was going to build the units. So I think we've pushed through to the point where we're going to have the inside storage, which from a traffic standpoint is a lot better than having 96 units. Conceptual, which really has me concerned, is 295 Rockingham Road, which is in the corner of Grenier Field Road and Old Nashville Road. We've constantly had a problem with that intersection up there. The owners have come in front of the, property owners have come in front of us. They've discussed the issues that they have there, and we've made a previous presentation, and I believe the DPW is going to start to rectify that. But they want to put they're looking to put another 40 units on that corner. I just can't, it's not going to handle it. It's not going to handle it. Alto Woodmont Commons, we're looking at approximately 264 units, all right? Now, we also have to understand that along with the Woodmont PUD, that we're obligated, or there is an agreement, that I think it was about 1,400 units. So above and beyond seeing Alta come in at the corner, at the intersection of Michael's Way and Pillsbury, which is very close to Pillsbury and Gilchrist, there's over 264 units, and then on top of that, we have to remember that we're obligated for more. This doesn't include the Baldwin. So, I've watched it, I've watched the traffic, we're going to get choked. And if we don't do something now, we're going to regret it. We've had some terrible accidents. A perfect example is 102. We did have a vote about trying to reduce the state road. We did have a vote trying to reduce the mile per hour, and it was voted down. Okay? We've already had a fatality there at the intersection of Perimeter and 102. I can tell you from personally, my son had rolled the car over there, same intersection. We've had a fatality on Hardy and Hovey Road. It's getting worse, and we've got to see if we can control this. Or what's going to happen is we're going to put tremendous pressure on the police. We're putting tremendous pressure on the fire. We're going to put tremendous pressure on DPW because they have to service and we have to repair the roads, not only for us, but the amount of people that travel through our town that we have no control over, none whatsoever. So I really think that it's time that we take a look at it, or we're gonna wish we did. I can tell you now that the current deficit in New Hampshire for affordable housing or housing is 23,000 units. They project that by 2030, the state of New Hampshire is going to need 60,000 units. There was, I know that there's been studies done, actually two studies, one by the Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission, actually the state, and they're all saying the same thing: we need housing. Well, you know something? I'll be honest with you. State doesn't, I have to be careful here, but no one's going to care about us but us. And we need to put our foot down now. I'm not afraid of developers, there's a way of saying, look, we're not interested. We're not interested. And is there some legal remedies that they have? Sure they do. But I'll go to the edge to try to cut down this. I really, really will. And there was and just to let you know how I came about this, For over the years, besides being a council member, I've been on the planning board, so I've seen it. I've been on the Heritage Commission, so I'm watching it, and I've been on the Traffic Safety Committee, and I've listened to residents. We constantly get complaints about speed. High Range Road, speeding on High Range Road. I was passed the other day on a double solid yellow line on High Range Road. Time to start paying attention to what we're allowing to build in this town. And like I said, I'm not against development. I believe that there's certain areas in town, and we've already identified them. Besides Woodmont, we have up at the airport. I believe in good development. But I can tell you, there was also a study done, and there was, I believe it was from Merrimack. It's interesting to know that during the last 10 years, the increase in homes for towns have gone up between 200 and 300%. What has lagged is the city of Manchester, the city of Nashua, and Salem. Those cities have only increased by 40 to 50%, so they're lagging behind in housing. If you take a look at what's happening down at Elm Street right now in Manchester, there's a lot of apartments, a lot of units going in down there. Now, we can't control what the costs are going to be. The market will control that. But I can tell you, that we really have some serious problems that we're going to be faced if we don't tackle this. And like I said, I would like the opportunity to have the town council to see about the planning board, instruct the planning board to start to develop a study, a feasibility study on a growth management ordinance. We did have a growth management ordinance, and it sunsetted on 2015. The planning department came back, from what I can see on the records, on 2017, brought this issue up again, and I believe, and I could be wrong, it didn't go anywhere. So we have no growth management ordinance right now.
Yeah, it's actually a legislative issue. So what we need the planning board to do is we need the planning board to develop what they're looking for, and then we need our state legislators to carry it through, because it has to comply with state law.
I can tell you, if anyone goes and takes a look at the records with the planning board in 2017, I think it was October 5th, 2017, a growth management ordinance was already prepared. It's already laid out, and it's online. It's on the town website. I think we need to get back to that. I think we need to develop a committee or have the planning board to start to look at this. Because if not, we're all going to be sitting in traffic, and it's only going to get worse.
Thank you.
You're more than welcome. Thank you. Any questions?
Appreciate it.
Not a problem.
Public comment has been closed already, sir.
You said that earlier, but you brought something else up here.
He just gave a presentation. There's no public comment. He just gave us some information.
We said, any questions?
He was asking us.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay. You got any questions?
Ray, if you have any questions, you can talk to me after the meeting. No problem.
Okay.
No problem.
All right, so I'll accept the motion to approve the minutes. They were adjusted earlier. Cameron made an adjustment to them earlier based on some information received from Councilor Dunn, and I'll accept the motion to approve the minutes with the adjustments.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes affirmative. Minutes are approved. Appointments and reappointments. Adjustment and reappointment to LHRA commissioners to be staggered. I have a memo to appoint the commissioners as follows. Dave Abbott to appoint to a one-year term expiring 12/24. Bill Mee to 2-year terms expiring 12/25. Greg DePass to a 3-year term for 12/26. And Chris Powers to a 4-year term for 12/27. I'll accept the motion to appoint all those people.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Gentlemen, please see the clerk and be sworn in. I have an interview for the Senior Resources Committee. You should have the talent bank. I believe we have that. Miss Valerie Bauer for a one-year position. Hi, Valerie, why don't you come on up for a minute, please? Hi, Valerie, if you'd like to have a seat. And just, so I have you at 4 Cortlandt Street. If you would like to introduce yourself, you might want to bring that mic a little closer to you.
Not real good at public speaking, sorry.
Oh, don't worry about it. Is there anything you would like to say about why you want to join the Senior Resource Committee?
I'm just really excited to be part of the community. I've been here about 8 years. We moved up from Boston, and I was very involved in my community then. And I have more time now, and I would just like to be part of the community in any way. So volunteering for the Senior Center is right up my alley. I was on the board of directors at East Boston Social Centers for over 15 years, and it served quite a bit of the community that I grew up in. So I'm excited.
Fantastic. Any questions for Valerie? I'll accept the motion for Valerie to join the Senior Resource Committee.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes in affirmative. Valerie, just see the town clerk and be sworn in.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Thank you for coming down. Liaison reports. Do I have any liaison reports for this evening?
Not at this time.
All set on liaison reports? You'll see that the airport continues to have more airlines. So our airport director, Ted Kitchens, is doing a great job up there bringing in more business. In my recent conversations with him, there are some the larger airlines that he's trying to engage with. They've yet to say yes, but he is not backing off. Town manager report.
None this evening, Mr. Chairman.
Assistant town manager report.
All set, Mr. Chair.
Anything further from the council this evening? Ladies and gentlemen, there is the town election a week from tomorrow on March 12th, as you've heard earlier. The polls are open from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. There is, on the school side and the town side, there are millions of dollars on the ballot. Please come out and vote. I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes in the affirmative, and we are adjourned. Thank you.
The future is threatened by enemies often unseen and unexpected. In the midst of an uncertain and evolving world, the need for Marines to defeat these shifting threats is critical, because the need to ensure stability for our nation has never been greater. When there are battles to win for a